Before I start, here's a quick announcement. I now have a plushie. It is of one of my characters called Hesper. You've probably seen him on the channel a couple times. If you want a plushie that you can absolutely abuse, throw around, burn, use as a punching bag, add him as a soup ingredient, strangle, or cuddle, I'll have the link in the description. The plushie is only limited for 21 days, and he'll only be shipped out if we make the sale quota. So thank you so much, and onto the video. Hello, I'm Blue, and today I'll be showing you how I draw faces. This video will be split into two parts. In this video, I will cover head shapes, facial structures, and proportions. And in the second, I will cover facial features and expressions. I know it's very easy to get stuck in the 3/4 face position. Do not take note that my character sprites are all in the same angle. Shh, don't look at that. So I have to show you that faces can be very easy to understand and to break down. Faces are the attraction point of most character art. This is where people recognize your style the most, and it also expresses the personality of your character. So attention to detail, anatomy, and proportions are very important. There are different stages of facial anatomy which will probably vary depending on your art style, but regardless they're all good to study. I have categorized them as follows: accurate, basic, simplified, and stylized. The accurate has the proportions, curves, and angles in reference to real life. This stage has no simplifying at all. I'm not knowledgeable in this stage, so I won't be showing you how to draw it. I'll be more focused on the basic and simplified stages. Now, this is not to say that the accurate stage should be blown off. It's a great way to learn the overall structure of the face. A resource that I can recommend is by Michael Hampton. He goes into great length about anatomy, not just in the face, but the entire body. So if you're interested in learning anatomy in more detail, I would highly recommend his books and his lectures. I have drawn and broken down many faces for this video, and facial proportions and features will always stay the same regardless of age, sex, or race. So all the faces in this video are androgynous. Although this rule can mostly only be applied to adults, since preteens and children can have a different bone structure compared to a full-grown person. This video does not cover how to get rid of same face syndrome, but just the overall structure of the head. First, let's talk about breaking down the face into easily understandable shapes. You've probably seen many artists tell you to start with this. If you've just started with art, this will make little to no sense, or at least for me it didn't. I didn't understand the purpose of any of these shapes or lines. Therefore, drawing these from different angles or trying to learn this is very hard for me. So I'll explain what all these shapes mean and why you draw them. Let's strip away the facial features and structures. And then we'll have this. And if we break this down into even simpler shapes, we'll have 1, a circle, 2, guidelines, 3, a mask, and 4, the neck and shoulders. When I start drawing a face, I'll usually start with the skull first. This is the circle. This helps with planning out the size and the proportion of the head. The skull is this section of the head. I have simplified it into a circle because this is the easiest to understand. Then the next thing I will add are the guidelines. The horizontal line is the eye line. This line keeps track of where you'll add eyes and other facial features that are in line with the eyes, like the eyebrows and ears. The horizontal line wraps around the circle, so it is in a curved shape. The horizontal guideline sits just below the center of the circle. The vertical guideline keeps track of the center of the face. This helps keep track of where the eyes and where the mouth, nose, and chin will be in line. The vertical line is very helpful for when you're drawing the face from a different angle, so you are able to keep track of where exactly the facial features will move along with the head. The next shape I will add is the face. I like to imagine this shape as a mask. So forget about all the curves and facial features for now. It is this outline of the face. The mask starts from the forehead down to the ears, down to the jaw, and then connects at the chin. The mask is curved, so from this side, it will have a slight curve outwards and then in. Something my friend Ari pointed out is that the mask can be practiced by imagining a bent piece of paper. So imagine a paper folded around a circle. This is very smart because this will also help with imagining the mask from different angles. Have a look at the position of the mask. It doesn't sit the entire skull. It's about halfway. This line over here will indicate the middle of the head, which is another center line which will help when you're drawing heads from different angles. When you're drawing the skull, make sure you follow the guidelines. You'll want the eye line to be slightly above half on the mask, since the jaw area is a lot longer. Now the mask sits on the skull, so it kind of like sticks to it. It is also curved in the inside. So if I was to remove it from the skull, this is what it would look like. And then the easiest shape to add is the neck. I imagine this is a cylinder that attaches to the bottom and the middle of the skull or face. You can use the guidelines over here as reference to where the neck will be added. So I have the center line of the cylinder connect with that of the face, and then you can add the shoulders which is just a triangle shape. Something that I see a lot of people forget is that the chin has an underside. This is the distance between the chin and the neck. This is a triangle shape and can be visible from some angles. In this stage of sketching, I will add a nose line which will help with planning. So here where the guidelines cross, I will add a nose or just where the face generally dips in. Oh, okay, well that took a very long time to explain. Now let's talk about angles. Once you're more familiar with these shapes and how they stick together, drawing them in different angles is a lot easier. So familiarize yourself with these shapes and break down the head in your own way. Depending on the angle of the face, you'll see more of the skull or less of the mask, or more of the mask and less of the skull. Always keep in mind how these shapes connect. If the face is slightly turned, all these shapes will be turned as well. So you'll see them all from different angles. The guidelines make this a lot easier to keep track of the angle and what you can see. So if I was to draw the face slightly turned to the right, I will turn the guidelines slightly to the right. Because remember, the guidelines are the second thing I draw, so they help with the positioning of the face. If I was to draw the face from the side, I'll have the guidelines from the side, etc. and so forth. So to be able to determine the angle, the guidelines have to be precise to the positioning. Here are some faces that I've drawn in the same view, but from different angles. Very interesting, but the ears always stay in the same line. If I was to break down these facial features into the shapes, you can easily identify where they are and from different angles. The angles is all about knowing what these shapes look like from different perspectives. See here, in this angle the face is a lot smaller because you can see a lot less of it. But in this angle the skull is more visible because the face is turned more away from the viewer. Okay, so the angle is something that takes a lot of practice. Breaking down references is a great study. This is what I did with the images I just showed you. There are also challenges that can help, like this one by JLac on Twitter, which is a lot of fun and you should definitely give it a try. But they can look a bit odd if you're new to it, like this one I did. They are so slightly terrifying in their own way. There's also this 3D model of a guideline I found online which is super useful. I'll have that linked in the description. This will help with different angles and you can see how much of the face you will be able to see and how much you won't be able to see. Now we can get to the more nitty-gritty part, the facial structure and form. I think this is the most important part of being able to draw faces. This also makes styling them so much more easier to understand. Now, I'll be honest, I'm a little nervous to even attempt to explain this because I have muscle memory, so explaining this is going to be a little bit hard, so I hope it at least makes some sense. Once you have the basic shape down, you can start defining the facial planes. I'll show you the shape I give my faces. All this is added to the mask section. Please bear with me while I attempt to explain shape. One of my friends, Ari, helped me come up with a better way to explain the planes of the face. So imagine the face like a geometric object, like a dice. The dice does not have any round surfaces, but instead has multiple flat surfaces that bend to create a 3D object. This can be applied to the face area as well. The planes of the face all connect together to create the shape and form. Here I'll attempt to show you the planes that I use for the face and in the direction that they go. The forehead comes down onto the eyebrow line, which dips inwards for the eye socket, followed by the cheek area. These look like... Then it flows down to the chin and jaw area. These all extend and go in their own way. And from different angles, these will be more visible. So from like this angle, you'll see a lot more of the forehead and the eyebrow line and then the cheek area. The face extends ever so slightly, so from the side, we will add the nose and extend that section until it reaches the chin. Honestly, to get to know these shapes, doing lots of studies with lighting, so using grayscale to highlight where the darkest parts and lightest parts are, and then just breaking down facial features into flat platforms like I've done here will help a lot. Ari coming in clutch again with some more advice. She recommends that if you're struggling and you can't seem to grasp the planes of the face, she says to look up tutorials on modeling a low polygon face in 3D softwares, but watching somebody shape a face from scratch really helps to understand the structure. Once these shapes are easier to understand, you'll be able to stylize them. Stylization can also be described as the act of deciding what features of the face are exaggerated or simplified. For example, my style, I have simplified the structure beneath, but I have exaggerated the eyes. So, like a very realistic style will follow these rules very tightly, and the structure and proportion will play a key role in achieving this look. A step down from that will be like my style, where I keep in mind the structure and proportions, but I like to play around with them. So enlarging the skull and thinning the neck, and having the structures be more rounded. And a step even down from that is like a chubby style, like the style I draw my videos in. This changes the entire head shape with a bigger skull, rounder mask, and a very light structure. So like here by the cheeks. No matter what your style looks like, knowing the basic rules of anatomy is very important to be able to break those rules. Something that I do is I like to break down how other artists style their facial structures, like Adventure Time or Arcane. It helps to be able to see how they've structured and bent the proportions. The Arcane style is probably the most insightful, since in that show there are a lot of sharp features, and the way they have shown different character designs is by enlarging these features, sharpening these features, rounding them. It's just a lot of fun to do. Now, all this might make your art seem a little bit stiff. Something my friend Patchable Art pointed out to me are these are just building blocks to be able to learn to draw faces and get comfortable. I don't use these methods anymore since I find it a lot easier to scribble in faces and guides like this. But that's just because I've grown used to them and I know the proportion and structure from muscle memory. When I say muscle memory, this means that I have drawn faces so many times that my hand automatically knows where the placements will be, the proportions, the angle. At the end of the day, with all studies and practices, being able to draw any form or anything with muscle memory is the goal. So with practice, it'll become a lot easier. Also, let's talk about homework. Recently, I thought it'd be fun to give you guys something to work off of. I want you to break down facial anatomy from reference and find the easiest shapes for you to use. Then draw them in your own style and post them in my Discord server. I'll give you advice on what you can do, keep in mind on there. That's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Part 2 will be up in about 3 weeks, depending on how busy I get. but I want to get it done as soon as possible, I promise. I'll go over eyes, mouth, and expressions in that one. Sorry I've been gone for so long, this year has been such a mess, but I hope to start working full time on making videos again. Thank you so much to everyone who stuck around, and I'll be better, I promise. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye!